It was an ordinary Friday when Emily Carter walked into that bar for the very first time. She was 20 years old, with a shy smile and the simple hope of resting for a few hours, but it was the last night she ever felt safe in that town. Minutes after accepting a drink from a man the whole town knew and feared, Emily began to feel the ground slipping beneath her feet. The sounds grew distant, the lights blurred, and the man who had approached her with such gentleness simply disappeared into the crowd. Someone called for help. The news spread fast, and when the name of the one responsible reached the ears of Sheriff Daniel Carter, it was the name of the most powerful man in town, the same man no one dared to confront. Emily Carter didn't grow up in a home full of laughter. She grew up in silence. After her mother passed away, the Carter house became empty in a way that furniture and routines can't fill. Her father, Sheriff Daniel Carter, was respected by everyone in town. But at home, he was just an exhausted man who barely knew how to talk to his own daughter. Emily learned early to fend for herself. She studied, worked at the diner after school, and still helped pay the monthly bills. No one asked if she was okay. Everyone assumed she was. She was the sheriff's daughter. She had to be. For years, she lived between invisibility and forced perfection. No room to make mistakes, no shoulder to cry on. Until one Friday night she tried for the very first time to simply be young, and the town never forgave her for it. Victor Langford arrived in town 3 years earlier with money, calculated smiles, and promises of prosperity, and the town believed him. He bought properties, funded community events, sponsored political campaigns. Before long, his name was on signs, in speeches, and on the lips of anyone who needed a favor. No one asked where all that money came from. It was easier to be grateful. But behind the scenes, there was another story. Employees fired without explanation. Lawsuits that vanished before trial. People who spoke too loudly and suddenly went quiet. No one could prove anything. No one tried. When Langford's name surfaced in connection with what happened to Emily, the town wasn't shocked. It was scared. And fear in that town always spoke louder than the truth. In the days that followed, Emily waited for the truth to speak for itself. She didn't yet know how silence can be carefully arranged. One by one, the witnesses from that night began to pull back. Some said they didn't quite remember. Others claimed they may have exaggerated what they saw. The bar announced a technical glitch that erased precisely the recordings from that Friday night. And then came the whispers that Emily was overreacting, that she wanted attention, that a girl like her shouldn't have been out alone at night. The town that watched her grow up was now murmuring against her, and every murmur hurt more than her father's silence, who had still not said a single word publicly about the case. Emily was slowly and painfully realizing that she wasn't just facing one man. She was facing an entire town that had chosen the most convenient side. Daniel Carter was a man of the law. He always had been. But he never imagined that the law would one day place him between his duty and his daughter. The pressure came from every direction. Business owners called asking for caution. City council members suggested the case be handled with discretion. One of Langford's attorneys showed up at the sheriff's office with a polite smile and words that sounded like a warning. Daniel listened to all of it and stayed silent. At home, Emily waited. Not for justice from the system. That hope was already fragile. She waited for her father to say something, anything. One word that proved she mattered more than his badge, more than the town, more than fear. That word never came. And it was in that silence that Emily learned the hardest lesson of her life. Sometimes, the people we love the most are exactly the ones who are least able to protect us when we need it most. Months had passed. The case had gone cold. The town had moved on, or pretended to. That's when a man named Roy Simmons knocked on Emily's door. Roy had been fired from the bar weeks after that night with no formal explanation. He carried a grudge, and he carried something else, a flash drive with a forgotten backup copy of the security system, recorded automatically before the so-called technical glitch. The video was short, but it was enough. It showed Victor Langford standing beside Emily's table, his back to the other patrons, leaning over her glass for just a few seconds. Discreet, calculated, real. Emily watched the video 3 times without being able to speak. It wasn't the victory she had imagined. It was simply the truth. Small, silent, and late. But it was hers. And no one could ever take that away. The video was handed over to the authorities. And for one brief moment, Emily believed the worst was behind her. She was wrong. Langford's attorneys came in full force. They challenged the authenticity of the recording. They questioned Roy's credibility. They presented technical reports, postponed hearings, and turned every step forward into a new obstacle. The trial dragged on for months. At every session, Emily had to relive that night in front of strangers who looked at her with doubt in their eyes. At every postponement, Langford left the courthouse in a suit, smiling at the cameras as if he were the victim. The town watched. Few spoke, but something had changed. Former Langford employees began seeking attorneys. Journalists from outside town started asking questions. The name everyone had feared to say out loud was finally being spoken. Justice was stumbling, but at least this time it was on its feet. Langford wasn't arrested that week, or the next. The case resulted in minor charges, fines, and legal disputes that would drag on for years. It wasn't the justice Emily deserved, but it was the only kind the system could deliver. What no one expected was what came after. Companies cut ties with Langford. Parallel investigations emerged in other cities. His name, once synonymous with power, became synonymous with suspicion. The untouchable man was beginning to crumble, slowly but irreversibly. Emily watched all of it from a distance. She had left town on a cold October morning, with one suitcase, a scholarship she had earned entirely on her own, and a letter from her father left on the kitchen table. The letter said little, but it said he loved her, and that he was sorry. Sometimes late words still arrive in time. Emily didn't forgive everything, but she chose to move forward. Not because the pain had faded, but because she had learned that her life was bigger than the town that tried to make her feel small, and she left without looking back. Every true story deserves to be heard. If you made it this far, it's because you believe that too. Tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? What would you have done in Emily's place, or in her father's? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It only takes a second, and it makes all the difference in helping us continue bringing stories like this one. Real stories about real people who deserve to be remembered. Until the next story, take care of yourself.